Welcome to the first episode of The Game is Cold podcast. Finally come up with a name for it. And it's one of those things where I always say the game is cold, but the premise of this name is so that you, as a man, well, I'm assuming it's men listening to this, but let's say women as well. You as a human being, you understand the nature of the game so that you can go about leveraging the nature of the game in order to play and win. Because chess is chess, regardless of if you're in England or if you're in Timbuktu. The game of chess is always the same. And that's why I say on Yak all the time, the game is cold and man must be colder. Because fundamentally the game is the game and it don't matter about your feelings. It don't matter about what you've gone through. It don't matter about your trauma. It doesn't matter about anything. If you're not playing the game, you will be played. That just is what it is. So, I mean, there's already been, about 20 episodes of different, 15 to 20 episodes of different recordings all together. But going forward, it's being called The Game is Cold, and like with all the other previous episodes, I'll be speaking on a whole bunch of different topics. This will be the first ever solo podcast, so this will be interesting to see how it goes, but I'm just going to shoot from the hip. I've got two things I want to speak on. I don't know how long this will last. It might last 10 minutes. It might last 3 hours. Who knows, bro? But all I know is with this first episode, it's almost like a pilot episode in a way to where I'm setting the scene for the future of what it's going to look like. But also, there's some things I want to speak on specifically because I've noticed with regards to just things in life and also things which my people, my boys, my G's inside of the syndicate tell me, where I'm noticing patterns and I want to address these patterns because even though most of you who are watching this or listening to this right now, you're not inside the syndicate, that doesn't mean that you can't understand things through people who are. Because fundamentally, you can learn from everyone in life, right? Whether it's someone doing better than you, someone doing worse than you, there is a lesson, a fundamental lesson for you to understand. So I'm just gonna, we'll see what angles we go and where this goes. But there's been two conversations I've had with people from the syndicate recently, and they were both pertaining to women. Now, let me preference this by saying the syndicate isn't just for women. Like, really and truly, I know the boys know this as well inside. I've already done and created all the content on women that's needed. Like, there's the whole series, there's all the different things that I've done. And I truly, truly believe that women, once you get them, are the easiest game a man can play. It's almost like, I used the chess analogy at the start. Same thing. Once you understand the rules, once you understand the nature of the game that you're playing with women, again, it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter the type of woman you deal with. Whether she's the daughter of a billionaire or whether she works at flipping McDonald's, you know she is a woman. And that's going to come with certain parameters. That's going to come with certain rules. And as long as you understand those rules and are able to play and adhere to those rules to a certain extent, then you're always going to be on the front foot. But yeah, in regards to these conversations that I've been having with the boys from the syndicate recently, let me actually pull one of them up. I'm not going to say verbatim what they said because that's not fair on them. But I'll give a general overview. So someone hit me up saying, "Hey T, how's it going? Got time for a quick consult?" And for those of you who don't know, I do consults for the G's inside the syndicate. It's free. We don't pay no money. That's just the byproduct of being inside the syndicate. If you're not in a syndicate, I'll be real, I damn near charge almost $1,000 for an hour. So that is what it is. If you wanted to pay that, fair enough. But yeah, I don't like getting on the phone with people who I don't know. That just is what it is. But he asked me for a consult. This was on Sunday. Yeah, this was on Sunday. This is when I was at church. I was like, bro, I'm busy. What's up? And he said, you know this girl who I was telling you about 3 weeks ago? We had a date, boom, boom, boom. Then she went on a trip and she said she'll text me in 2 weeks. She didn't end up texting him. And when the 2 weeks passed by and he was expecting her to see her at a certain place, he didn't see her. He didn't get no text, no updates, no nothing. So he texted her after this 2 weeks. So after she initially said, I'll hit you up in 2 weeks, he's texted her and then there was no reply after 2 days. So 2 days later, he called her and she didn't pick up the call, but she responded with a text. And when he texted her back, he got no reply. And when he asked me, I know I might sound desperate, but man, she has really awakened something meaningful inside me. What's your take? And do you know what I responded with? I responded with 2 things. I said, you said it yourself. You sound desperate, bro. You can't negotiate with desire. See things for what they are, not what you wish they were. And that principle right there will forever change the way that you play the game. Any game that you're playing with. Because with anything that you're dealing with in life, there's always the reality of what it is and the delusion of what you want it to be. There's always those 2 things. And the closer that you as a man can go about intertwining these 2 things and having a synergy between what you want things to be and what they actually are, the colder you are. So for example, that guy who is able to attract a dime with ease, he has the delusion that he should be able to attract a dime with ease, but he also has the reality, i.e. the game, to which he can actually do that. But you can have that delusion side of things. You can believe you should be able to attract a dime, but if you don't have the game, you have nothing. So it's one of those things where those 2 elements are so important. So let me go into the second situation real quick, and then I'm gonna explain it as a totality. So another one of the boys hit me up, and this time we actually did have a consult. We spoke for like an hour. We were just chopping it up. And this is a guy who is killing it off in business. Killing it off. I'm not gonna say what he does, but he's making silly money. He's damn near that guy for his niche in the city that he's in. He's just doing very, very well in life, and kudos to him. And if he's listening to this, he'll know I'm referring to him. But then he asked me, he said he approached a girl in the gym. I don't even approach a girl in the gym. He was speaking to his girl in the gym, and then he got a number, and he texted her initially saying, I'm glad that I ran into you, but she hadn't responded. And he was like, what do I do? I said, bro, really and truly, if she genuinely wanted you, she would have been replied. It's one of those things where I say, I have a Drake test, and I created this in 2021. And well, that's 4 years ago. And to this day, this is still one of the coldest things I've ever come up with. Well, I say I came up with. God bless me with the thought to come up with this. Because what it does is that it strips away any delusion and it forces you to see things for what they are, not what you wish they were. And for those of you who don't know what the Drake test is, what it is a test that I devised that goes about just removing any facade. And from the tweet, this is the tweet verbatim. Quote, how do I know she likes me? Unquote. Is quote even right for the say? Should say comma. Oh well. Said the Drake test. Ask yourself, if it was Drake, would she act the same? Would she leave Drake on red or reply instantly? Would she leave mixed signals or make it obvious? Ask yourself these questions and you will have your answer. Now, the thing is with the Drake test, and it's something I don't think enough people understand, the whole premise of it, the whole psychology behind it, it's not about Drake himself. Insert any celebrity or figure of stature within that. If her celebrity crush, and if she even has a celebrity crush, that's a whole other conundrum in and of itself. But I'm not getting into that on this podcast. But insert someone she looks up to. Would she react the same way to him that she does to you? If she would react the same way, perfect, cool. If she wouldn't react the same way, why would you tolerate being treated as anything less than that guy? Why would you tolerate being treated as damn near a second option? And I'm asking it's a rhetorical question, but I can just answer that question for you. It's a self-image thing. Self-image thing, brother. And it's one of those things where, especially this year, I've been speaking more about the self-image because it really pertains to everything in life. You can't outperform your self-image. It don't matter how high you go in life. You can be worth billions. You can have a dime by your side. You can have everything, but you are always going to default to your self-image. And if there's any misalignment between your self-image and the reality that you live in, what it's going to lead to is self-sabotage. It's why the guys who they make money and then they always seem to squander it, self-image. It's why guys may be able to get a woman, but a woman who seems like a layup, who seems like this is everything that he's ever wished for, but he fumbles it because his self-image. And when I say fumble, like I'm watching the NFL right now. Like a fumble indicates that you initially had possession, right? The ball got past you in some way, shape, or form, and you had possession. And in some way, shape, or form, you lost possession. I don't say fumble with regards to you're never going to get it back or anything like that, because I don't even really believe in the concept of fumbling. Like, if you're truly that guy, it's not possible for you to fumble a woman because God has bigger and better plans for you. What I'm referring to is the guys who God blessed them with something, but they sabotage it because of their self-image. And this is a long-winded way of saying, referring back to these two scenarios that I detailed at the start, that you must always see things for what they are, even if it goes against what you want it to be. It's one of those things. It's almost like taking medicine. Taking medicine never tastes good. Never tastes good. I don't know. I don't know the whole psychology behind medicine. I don't know the whole reason why it doesn't taste good. But fundamentally, when you take medicine, what it does is that it elevates the state that you're currently in. So when you drown yourself in reality, when you're a man who can constantly see things for what they are rather than what you wish they were, what you're doing is that you're putting yourself in a psychological state to where, one, you can't be touched because you're constantly painting reality to be in alignment with what it actually is. But then two, and most importantly, you can't be played because you're seeing it for what it is and you're seeing the whole picture. There's nothing that can sidetrack you. There's nothing that can backstab you. There's nothing. And with both of these scenarios, and really and truly seeing things for what they are is like damn near step one in the game. It's when what you want is different than the situation that you're actually living in. So for example, with the guy who he met this girl and for 2 weeks, she didn't respond on nothing. Like, if you were to see things for what they were, it's obvious that she didn't really have that deep desire for you. And why I say it's obvious is because it boils back to female nature. When I was speaking about the nature of not tennis, the nature of chess, like chess is chess, and there's certain rules and a certain nature of the game of chess. Like, for example, a pawn, it can only move forwards, or it can move diagonal if you're taking another pawn. A queen, it can go in any direction. A king can only go one step at a time. I mean, there's a certain nature of the game. So when it comes to the game of women, there's a certain nature that comes with women. And when a woman is truly, truly obsessed with you, damn near her life revolves around you. Like, she will change anything and everything she's doing just to spend 10 minutes with you. And the interesting thing about what I just said is the second guy, he's experienced this, but he'd almost like forgotten the experiences, and it was me speaking to him that reminded him of like, brother, you have to understand the caliber of man that you are. This is the second guy who's a guy who's killing off in business and printing and doing very well in life. I was like, bro, you are the prize. And that's a very kind of cliche thing to say nowadays. Like you hear it from men, you hear it from women, and most of the time it's really just nonsense and just a way for people to make themselves feel better about themselves. But you gotta understand, as a man, once you're at a certain caliber, once you're in a certain position in life, truly what you represent and who you are, women can't just go out and find that. They can't. So because of that, and in a game where everything boils down to value, you have to conduct yourself in a certain way. If a woman looks at you and damn near within like 2 weeks, and I was going to say damn near twice, but let's just do it. Damn near isn't obsessed over you. It should be a case where it's like, this girl ain't for me, man. Because you have a certain image of yourself, going back to that self-image, and assuming your game is tight, you actually know how to play the game, it should be a case of, this is the bare minimum. That's what I told him. And I want to make a point to you as well. Obsession is the bare minimum. Like, obsession isn't anything to be excited about. Obsession isn't anything to be like, oh, she's obsessed with me, like, wow. Like, no, bro. Like, this was normal like 100 years ago, like 50 years ago. It's only in recent times where where men are just so dainty and dreadful at dealing with women and understanding how to play the game, that this kind of narrative of, oh, she'll tell me something impressive. Like, no, her mission is meant to be your mission. She is meant to be doing everything in her power to make your life easier. She's meant to look at you as a man and look up to you the same way you look up to God. That's not anything special. But if you've never had something before, of course, that's going to mean something to you. And you have to go about making obsession your bare minimum. And how, this is going to be like $1 million worth of game. How do you go about doing that? Because it's one of those things, and it's something that I say quite a lot, but you won't get it until you get it. It's a small hinge that swing the big doors. I know categorically that for most of you listening to this right now, you're just a few pieces of information away. You're a few mindset shifts. You're a few actions away from becoming that guy who can play the game with zero competition. But it's one of those things to where you have to go about taking that first step. You have to go about rolling the dice. You have to go about taking that first shot for everything to come into fruition and for you to truly live life like a movie. But going back to what I was just saying, it's one of those things to where how you make obsession your bare minimum is that you are truly and utterly obsessed with yourself. And it's low-key selfish. But here's the paradox of being selfish. Being selfish is the most selfless thing you can do. Every single man of note throughout history was stupendously selfish. But because of his selfish nature and because of this enamorment, is that the right word to say? Because he was so enamored with himself. I said enamorment. I should create my own word. But because he was so enamored with himself, he understood, for me to do the things I have to do, I must be selfish, so that the byproduct of that is that my selfish actions are going to lead to other people's betterment of their own life. So I've recently been reading about Alexander the Great, and there's so many stories in the book that I was reading about how he was utterly selfish, and he would go on different quests and different missions purely as a selfish ambition to where his thing, and it's such a beautiful thing about what I've learned about going through history. His thing when he first came into the throne is that he didn't want to be compared to his father. So he came into the throne at 20, and his initial thought process was, my dad has already conquered so much of the world. Like, how am I going to do more than this? Like, he didn't want to be put in the same category as him. Think about that as just from like a psychological point of view. His thing isn't even, how do I sustain? How do I do this and that? He's like, my dad's already at this level. How do I even go about getting to that next level to where he can't compare to me? But then it's that same fuel, it's that same fire, it's that same willpower that forced him to be stupendously selfish. But also the byproduct of it was that he damn near conquered all of the world in which he was in by the time he was 25, 26. But he was very obsessed with himself, and he was very obsessed with his craft. And in a world where everything is a mirror, the more you obsess over yourself, the more that everything and everyone in this world obsesses over you. Because the thing is, especially in the game that we're playing in today, so many guys have dimmed their light and put on this act of being humble when in reality it's just hamstringing them. And don't get twisted, this doesn't mean you should be an arrogant asshole. This doesn't mean that you should be a guy to where you're constantly in people's faces about how good you are and you're this and you're that. That's what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is that you have so much inner confidence that is low-key bordering on arrogance. And when I say arrogance, again, I don't mean in people's faces, but because you know who you are and because you know what you can do and because you know the mission that you're on, the byproduct of that is that you radiate with a certain kind of energy. You radiate with a certain kind of shine that people have no choice but to look up to you. Like, you can walk into a room, and you know if you have it, when you do walk into a room or you walk into a certain environment and people just start looking at you, just like, they're wondering, who is this guy? You get that celebrity treatment. It's one of those things to where everyone looks at the sun. Do you know what I mean? Like, people's whole day, and I haven't spoke on this before, but it's a really dope concept that I've been thinking of. Think about the sunset. And I was thinking about this when I was in Hawaii. By the way, Hawaii, favorite place I've ever been to in my life. Like, Hawaii is unbelievable. Highly recommend it. But I was in Hawaii, and it's when I was in the North Shore, and you can Google this. It's in Oahu or Honolulu, whatever they call it. But when I was in the North Shore, people literally stop their day, or people go out of their way to watch the sunset. And people literally just go sit on the beach and just watch the sunset, because I don't know how it's different in Hawaii, but the sunsets are unreal. But think about the sunset in and of itself. It is an event. It's something to where people, they want to go out of their way to do it because of how good it is, or what it represents. And when you are that guy, when you are the prize, when you live life, when you're obsessed with each other, you are the sunset. People look at you like, damn, who's this? Flipping heck. And you have to develop that within yourself. And it can't be conceited. It can't be you're being a narcissist or anything like that. Again, please don't please don't misunderstand what I'm saying here. But you have to have a certain level of confidence within yourself. And then that really boils down to, where is your confidence rooted in? Like, for example, for Christians, our confidence is rooted in God. One of my favorite books in all of the Bible is Philippians 4. Highly, highly recommend it. So even if you're not a Christian, read it. Because within there, and I believe it's Paul speaking, and if I'm wrong, well, I've embarrassed myself, but I'm doubling down on it. It was Paul speaking, and he was speaking to the Philippians. And before they get to the famous verse of Philippians 4:13, he says something like, in all states, and this is me paraphrasing by the way, in all states I am content. And that's such a beautiful saying. But this saying stems from the fact that he is content because he knows and understands he can do all things through Christ who strengthens him. That's what his confidence is rooted in. That's where his contentment is rooted in. Because he knows Christ, because he knows the nature of Christ, knows how this nature thing always comes full circle. Because he knows the nature of Christ, what that allows him to do is to be completely confident in that Christ will always make a way. And he can stay content in that. He doesn't stress. He doesn't worry. He doesn't get fazed because he knows he has God on his side. And as Psalms 56 verse 3 states, if God is for you, who can be against you? So again, what is your confidence rooted in? One of the biggest problems that I've found throughout a lot of successful people in life is that their confidence is rooted in what they've done and the profession that they're in. So for example, I know of people who are doing 5, 6, 7 figures a month and they struggle horribly with women. And at the root is because their confidence is rooted in the amount of money that they're making as opposed to the man that they are. And it's such a fundamental flaw because what happens is, and I spoke about this a few times, but I mean, you have to be reminded more, you have to be taught. When you root your confidence in anything outside of yourself, what happens is that once anyone has more of that thing, instantly your view of yourself decreases. So let's say if you're making 100K a month, which obviously is insane money. If you're doing that and then you find out someone who's been in business less time than you and is doing 500K a month, instantly your self-image drops to the floor. Your perception of yourself drops to the floor. Everything just goes to zero because your identity was rooted in that money that you was making. But because someone's done more in less time, you think, I'm nothing. It's almost like the athletes who they're playing, like, again, I'm watching the NFL right now. They're playing in the league, or footballers, and it's a big thing in football, and it's something that they're addressing right now in England. And these footballers, their whole life has been around playing football and playing in front of 1,000 people every weekend and making all this money and doing all these cool things, boom, boom, boom. But as soon as they leave the game, instantly they're like lost in life. They have no idea what they're doing because their identity is rooted in the game that they're playing. That's the worst way, absolute worst way to play the game. That's why I said, what is your confidence rooted in? But that was a little tangent. But to go back to the point, these guys have been a syndicate. Both of the situations are fairly similar. And it's one of those things to where, especially with women, with whatever situation you're dealing in, just take a step back. Take a step back. And just ask yourself, like, you might want to go to a mirror. Or you might just want to just literally just stop what you're doing and just ask yourself, is this what I deserve? Like, is the way that this woman treating you, is this what you deserve? Do you deserve for a woman to not respond to you for 2 weeks? And then after that, even when you text her again, she don't respond. Like, is that really what you deserve? You deserve for you to approach a woman and then she doesn't respond to you later on. But that's not the first question. Is that really what you deserve? Because the second question is this something you're really going to tolerate? When you're the type of guy who only deals with dimes, a dime is the only thing you'll attract. And it's a very simple statement. And it really means nothing if you don't understand the game. But if I was to extrapolate this into something which anyone could understand, you must be the kind of guy who has the thing that you want before you have the thing that you want. It applies to everything, by the way. It applies to making money. It applies to attracting opportunities. It applies to closing deals. It applies to attracting a good woman. And it follows a core principle of life that we do have. And the boys in Syndicate know all about this. That's all I'm going to say. It's one of the most important voice notes to listen to inside Syndicate once you first join. And I'm not going to extrapolate on it any further. But the reason why, if I really boil it down to what it is, and the thing is with my boys side of Syndicate, like, I don't sugarcoat. The worst thing anyone can do to you, really and truly, is sugarcoat. And it's why I disdain everything that the red pill represents. Because what they're doing is just sugarcoating the truth in a false facade of it's woman's fault, it's not your fault. Listen, brother, if the type of woman you attract don't just reply for 2 weeks, that's on you. But at the same time, you can just choose to attract, you can just choose to attract different. It's why the weekly reminder on Yak is, you can become that guy by just being him. And you can just make a decision today. I'm going to be that guy. As long as everything is congruent with that, the rest is barbecue chicken, bro. The rest is history. But it's one of those things to where even the decision in of itself, it doesn't really mean anything. It's the follow through. It's almost like I can go to a train station and I can buy a ticket. But if I don't get on that train, I'm not going to go nowhere. Okay, yeah, I've made the decision to buy the ticket. But if I don't follow through on where that ticket is taking me, it means nothing. I basically just wasted my money. I'm just wasting my time. Why did I go to the station? And that's why I say it starts with a decision, but then everything after that decision has to be congruent. Everything after that decision has to be aligned with the man that you want to be. Because there's always a gap between where you are right now and where you want to be. And the only way to bridge that gap is just through action. Action, action, action. So again, going back to I keep going back, going off all these little tangents. Going back to these boys within the Syndicate, like, is this really something you're willing to tolerate? Because if you really keep it a buck, if a woman is leaving you on red for 2 weeks and you're even considering it as an option, that says more about you than it does a woman. And that, again, that's why I despise the red pill. Because the red pill will say, oh, she's been doing this and that. She's not a good woman. She's not yours. It's just your turn. Boom, boom, boom. It's like, no, brother, no. Like, that's what you attract. That's what you attract. That's the mirror of who you are. But life doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't. You can decide this is the only way in which a woman will treat me. And the thing is, that's the only way a woman which will treat you. Because if she doesn't treat you like that, she's gone. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those things to where if a woman does anything where it isn't congruent with the program that I'm running, she's out of the door. Like, again, watching the NFL, I'm like, with these coaches, if a player is consistently running a route which they're not meant to run, they are out of the game. It's no if, buts, or maybes. They are gone. Why are they gone? Because they don't adhere to the program which you're trying to run. They don't adhere to the end goal, i.e. trying to win in the game of life. So if this woman can't even do the bare minimum of being interested in you, why would you even want her? But again, going back to that self-image, you just don't really fundamentally, at your core, truly believe you deserve better. So that's why once you elevate your self-image, everything in your life changes. And again, referring to that, the small hinges that swing the big doors. And self-image, it's not hard to elevate. It's not hard to go about improving. But it's one of those things to where It's also a decision. Same things for what they are, not what you wish they were. I've been thinking about women, but it pertains to everything, right? I don't even know if I said the ending of. No, I didn't say the ending of what happened with the second guy. The guy's killing it off in life. So we sent out that initial text saying, "Hey, it's XYZ. I got run into you." That's when he asked me, "What should I do?" I said, "Bro, you can't negotiate with desire." And if you notice, those two things I said to the same people, because fundamental truth, like, it is what it is. She either desires you or she doesn't. If I'm going to a store, I either like the piece of clothing and I buy it, or I don't like it, I'm not going to buy it. It's two binary options. Do you know what I mean? But then he was like, "Oh, but I like the girl, boom, boom, boom." I was like, "Bro, you can't negotiate with desire, but if you really feel like there is a potential there, what you should do is you should lead in with gaining clarity." And it's one of those things in the game of life in which you're playing, but really and truly, everything that you do when it comes to women should be based around gaining clarity on whether she adheres to your program or not. Because the worst situation, by far, the worst situation you can be in is when you don't know. But if you really keep it 100, and again, I'm not going to sugarcoat, I'm not going to go about telling you a lie. You already have clarity. And if you have to question it, you already know the answer. But that self-image, you're trying to think you deserve better than what you actually have right now. It's one of those things where it'll always come bite you back in the butt. So he asked me, "What do I do?" I was like, "Bro, is what it is. But if you really, really want to see what the crack is, you really want to see where her head's at, just send her a message saying, let's do this at this time." And she's either going to agree to it or she's not. And then pray that you have your crystal clear clarity. So he sent the message, and then she basically ended up saying, "I'm going to pass for now. I'm not into dating right now." Boom, boom, boom. And it's one of those things where, I'm sure for hindsight, for this G, it was obvious, but now he has that clarity. And the biggest thing that I want you to understand from all of this is that everything is always staring at you in your face. Everything. Whether it's you're unsure about a woman, whether it's a decision that you have to make, whether it's why you're not in a financial situation you want to be in, whether it's anything in life, the decision is always staring at you. The question is, can you see it? And the question after that is, are you willing to do it? And it's such a fascinating paradigm switch once you can integrate this in your head, where you realize, and it's why I say, with regards to anything in life, you shouldn't be trying. You shouldn't be trying to make money. You shouldn't be trying to make connections. You shouldn't be trying to impress a woman. You shouldn't have to try to do any of that. Everything should just be a byproduct of the man that you are and the caliber of man that you are, which people inherently just look up to you. Again, I spoke on that earlier. But with regards to connections or making money, that should just be a byproduct of the skill sets that you have. It should be a byproduct of the connections and the energy which you move with. Everything is always a byproduct of everything. Do that for a second. Everything is always a byproduct of everything. Like, anyone who can get a certain result is a byproduct of something else. So let's say, for example, in the NFL, all of these people, so there's 22 players on the pitch at one time. They're all playing in a league to where they're at the pinnacle, right? But the reason that they got there is a byproduct of them just being, or there's more on a byproduct of them just being athletic or them just being good at the sport. They have to adhere to a certain program. They have to adhere to certain rules. They have to adhere to a certain nature that the game that they play requires. It's why they're the top of the top, because they adhere to those things, whereas the other people who in a similar situation to them didn't. So seeing things for what they are, not what you wish you were, forever change the way you play the game. Because one of those things, it's like a filtering mechanism, especially with women. It's like, you can just stop yourself in your trap before you get in your feelings, before you start thinking, it isn't what it is. You can just check yourself, stop yourself in your tracks and say, does it even make sense? Is what she's saying and what she's doing, are they aligned? Is who she claims to be and who she actually is, are they aligned? Is the woman she is and the man I'm going to be, are they aligned? Is her lifestyle and the way that I want my lifestyle of the mother of my children to be, are they aligned? And it's like, out of anything in life, everything starts off conscious. You have to initially go about asking yourself these questions just on a regular basis. But over time, the more that the game is in you, the more that you're truly understanding all these little nuances and are able to put the pieces of the puzzle together yourself. It's one of those things where it just becomes subconscious. You have to think about it. You can look at a woman, and this is when you know your game is tight. When you can look at a woman, as you're walking down the street, be able to look at her, look at how she's moving, her demeanor, her mannerisms. When you're making eye contact, you'll be able to just know she has potential or she doesn't. And at that point, that's when the game becomes simple. And that's when you're playing a game with zero competition. And I want to reiterate that this concept applies to absolutely everything. For example, if you're making 10K a month right now and you want to get to 100K a month right now, it's one of those things to where you have to see things for what they are, not what you wish they were. The things that got you to 10K a month aren't going to be those same things that get you to 100K a month. That's just not life. Now, are the fundamentals the same? Are the foundations that you built the same? Absolutely. But with what I said earlier in regards to it's those small hinges that swing the big doors, and from what I know of people who've gone from 5 figures a month to 6 figures a month, a lot of what they was doing just the byproduct of systems, which will enable them to be able to get to that 6 figure a month mark. And again, this pertains to everything. If you want to attract better opportunities into your life, see things for what they are, not what you wish they were. What kind of things do you need to improve on? What kind of things you need to stop doing? What kind of things you need to subtly change in order to get a better outcome that you're currently getting? The game in and of itself is one big game of trial and error. Now, the beauty of the game is that you could spend years playing this game of trial and error, or you could have access to the information that someone who's already been through that same experience before, and you can apply what they tell you so that you can transform years of trial and error and just damn near pain into weeks of learning the right blueprint. And that's what the Syndicate does. And if you're a man who's experiencing any kind of struggles with confidence, dating, or respect, and you're wanting 2026 to be the year where you become that guy and you can play the game with zero competition, DM me on Telegram or on Yak, and I'll send you the details on what that looks like to join myself and the 100 plus G's inside the Syndicate. I hope and pray that this podcast was beneficial to you. You must constantly see things for what they are, not what you wish they were, with regards to everything. And if you truly apply this principle, it will go about elevating your life. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And God bless you, brother.